Hey everyone, Lauren from A Girl in Her Wool here. So today I'm doing a spinning vlog because I have finished my handspun project that I've been working on. This is gonna work a little bit differently in that I filmed a little bit of vlog footage as I was working on this the last few days. So I will be kind of overlaying that as I talk, but then it might switch here and there into some of the vlog stuff. So anyway, without further ado, I have been working on this handspun project for a couple of years now. This is kind of what I call my first spinning project in that I had some fiber from the spinning class I took back in the day. I think it was 2016, so 4 summers ago. And after I kind of finished that, I got this braid, and so I called this my first spinning project, even though technically I did spin a skein before this. So anyway, here is the finished skein. So you can see that it has a lot of teals and blues and browns and whites. So this was a braid created by Elsie B. I actually won this braid in a giveaway she was doing. I think it was when she launched her website and she did a giveaway, and I happened to win it. So it was kind of like a pick. The comment was pick the colorway you wanted, and so I had picked this one out because I'm obsessed with blues and browns, and so this was just the perfect braid for that. Here's some of the information. So it was called Niagara Falls. It was a one of a kind, and it's a BFL and C-cell blend. So it's not a super wash fiber. It is BFL, and the C-cell in there was just added a lot of this shimmer to it. So I don't know if there will be, well, here's some kind of sticking out here, but it just added, even where you see a lot of the barber pulling with the white, there's also just some of it in there. So even if you look at that white section there, there's just a lot of shine in there. And it was really nice because some of the plies had some, so let me take a step back. So I spun this up as a 2-ply. So I split the braid in half and I did a fractal spin. So I split the braid in half and I lengthwise, and then I spun the first part of that onto one bobbin in a length as it came. So I didn't rearrange the colors, I just did it as they came and then put that aside. For the second bobbin, I split it again lengthwise, so technically it was 1/4 and 1/4 of the braid, and then spun through one in its entirety and then the other in its entirety. And it just made it so that there's a lot of barber pulling happening in there. So you see a lot of the teal and the brown there, blue and white there, but then you also have the overlap of the white because that was the first color, and then there's a lot of overlap in the brown because those were kind of towards the end. The bobbins were not evenly matched, so at the end I ended up doing an Andean plying type of thing just to do a 2-ply with the remnants of the last skein, and that's actually what's here. So there's a lot of like the black and purple overlap that came from the end of that. Technically this is 2 skeins, so, and laying it out, you can see it's laying pretty nicely, but technically this is 2 skeins, just because I don't have a jumbo bobbin, and so I couldn't fit all of it on one, but I will knit this as one project. I don't have the final yardage. It based on the wraps per inch post washing. This has been washed. It is a fingering weight yarn, but I don't have the yardage, so it's probably, you know, about 400 yards, but I will update my project page with that information, so you can find that there if you're interested. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is just the fractal applying piece of it. So for this skein, I kind of explained how I did the fractal applying. I think in the future, I might even consider, so I applied it, I split it in half, spun 1/2 completely, took the other one, spun it in half, and did those 2 sections back to back. I think in the future, I might even consider breaking that kind of third piece down even more, just because I felt like at the end I was getting a lot more overlap in the color than I might have wanted, and I think it would have been interesting to have more overlap. So like there's a long section of the teal and the white, there's a long section of the browns kind of overlapping each other, and you had like those purple and blacks, whereas if I broke down that other ply further, it would have repeated the sequence more, and I might have gotten kind of more unique sections, which would have been interesting to see, especially because this isn't that colorful of a braid. Yes, there's the teal and the blue, bright blue, but other than that, it's pretty much browns, blacks, and white. And so having kind of that blue and teal broken up even further, it would have just spread out that color a little bit more, which I think would have been nice. So things you learn about, things you don't think about when you're a beginner and you have no idea what's going to happen, in the same way that we can kind of predict what's going to happen with certain yarns and certain projects when you're used to knitting or crochet. Spinning is just something I will have to get more and more used to. So again, I'm excited to be done with this one and move on to the next. So a couple of things that I learned along the way, because this was, again, my first spinning project. So one, like I said, it does hang straight, which means that it's not over twisted or over plied. The plying and the twist in the singles are pretty even, which is great. That was definitely my main goal. I wanted somewhat of a good evenly plied, evenly twisted yarn. It is not overly plied, it's loosely plied, and you can see a lot of that in there. And so I think a goal for me moving forward is to just try to make sure that I, one, add enough twist, and two, add enough ply. I think going into this one, I didn't want it to turn out too ropey, and so I wanted it to stay soft, which it is very soft, and so that goal kind of worked out well. But I do like the kind of rounder, more high twist look of handspun skeins that I've seen, and so that's kind of one of my goals moving forward on this. Another thing that I kind of learned is some of the color management, and I know people a lot of times talk about how they try to control color and then sometimes they just kind of let it go. So with the fractal plying, you get a blended look of the colors, which I really like. There are some sections of this that I really just love the two colors that ended up together. I really like how the white softened a lot of it. So in here you see a lot of the white with the teal and the blue. And then even there were some parts here where the brown was almost more like a bronze, and that plied with the teal is really nice. But then there were some things that I wasn't a huge fan of. So again, I'm not sure, the white was the first color, and so I have a lot of white on its own. And then brown was kind of towards the end of the skein, and so I have a lot of brown together. And I feel like those are the two colors that I probably didn't want like kind of on their own. I love how the white looks blended in with the colors, and the brown is just a good, again, neutral. It's a good way to tone down some of the colors a little bit. And so maybe it was okay to have the two neutral colors as the ends and therefore applied on themselves, but at the same time, in the future, I might try to rearrange colors and see how they play. The way this skein went, it went from the white to the blue, royal blue, into the teal, and then into the browns and purple and black. So I think I might look to rearrange those a little bit in the future so that it's not really colorful on one end and then more neutrals on the other. I might decide based on how this knits up if I still feel that way, but when I was plying, that's what I thought of. When I was plying this too, I will say I wasn't sure if I would end up knitting with it. And I know that a lot of people are saying, well, of course you should knit with it. It's your hand spun, you have to knit with it. But there's so much beautiful yarn in the world. There's such good yarn out there that I don't have to knit with it just because I spun it. If I'm not enjoying it, or if I'm not gonna like the finished look of whatever I end up knitting, why waste the time knitting it? So now that it's washed and everything, I think I'm going to ball it up at least and and start something and see how I feel when it is knitting up, to see how I feel about that. I'm not 100% set on taking all the time to finish the project, but we'll see when it starts knitting up. And I will have to give it a bit of time because it is gonna start with all that white. So I'm gonna have to see what happens when it kind of migrates into some of the colors. My original plan was to knit up the Tan House Brook shawl, which is by Boston Jen, and this is perfect timing because the pigskin party launches September 25th, the same day that this video airs, and so it would have just been great. It's good timing to finish this and then get it going as my cast on project for that knit along. Again, one of the reasons why I'm not sure I want to knit with it is, again, it's very loosely plied, and it's just very fuzzy, which I think is just, you know, it's not super wash, so it is going to be fuzzy. So we'll see. Well, I just don't want it to have too much of a messy look. I like my knits to be clean and look nice, and I don't want it to look too like stereotypical homemade, handmade. So we'll see, but I am happy it's done. I do love the colors in it. So again, I'm a blues and browns person, which is why I was drawn to this skein, and the teals as well. But in the end, we'll see. We'll see how I feel. So stay tuned to see how it knits up and where I go from here. Thing. This was my, because I worked on that project and spinning the singles for it for 2 years probably at least, it's been that long since I plied, and I've never done a 2-ply before. For my practice skein I did a chain ply 3-ply, and so I think this honestly went better because you kind of just feed them through. I used my Lazy Kate that I have from Shacked, and I just let it kind of go. I did also spin off I took one of the bobbins. I think it was bobbin number 2, my second bobbin, and I wound that off onto storage bobbins. And the reason why I did that was, one, I wanted to reverse it. I wanted to ply the white first, so I wanted to ply from beginning to end. And then the other reason is that just a limit in the number of bobbins I had. I wanted to be able to have bobbins to then ply onto, and so I needed 2 available for that because I knew one wouldn't fit, and I used 2 to ply onto. So I used my Lazy Kate, and I had one of the singles on the storage bobbin, and then I kept one on the regular bobbin and plied them together. And because, again, this is my first project, so obviously I was going to get better over time, but the bobbin that had my first singles on it, so the first half of the braid, broke so many more times. I don't think the second one broke ever. I think that the singles was strong enough to go with the plying, but the first one broke a lot. Feeling it through my fingers, one ply was like very smooth and one was lumpy and everything. So I think because of that, it's great that I did the 2-ply, because then it kind of evened that out. Whereas if I did an Andean plying the whole time, where you're basically taking one singles and plying the 2 ends together, you end up kind of having the same singles on itself. And I think the 2 skeins then would have been very different, because one would have just been from that first bobbin that was lumpy and not as smooth and then broke a lot, so it would have been weaker, versus, and then the second one would have been smoother and probably more consistent throughout it, and then stronger, I guess. Whereas now I kind of have the beginner one and the more advanced beginner, less beginner one plied together, so then it just evens out the lumps, it evens out the strength, and I think it'll make it knit up a lot better. So that was a good thing that I did the 2-ply. I'm glad I did. So that was that on plying. Otherwise the plying went smooth. Again, I used my Lazy Kate, so nothing got knotted, everything was good. So yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the teal. So teal, as a dyer, I know that teal can bleed. While I was spinning it, my fingers definitely turned teal. It didn't bother me too much. I usually have dye on my hands anyway, and it washes off pretty easily. But when I washed the skein, the teal just totally bled out. And so I didn't leave this soaking because I didn't want the white to turn teal. I didn't want the whole skein to turn teal. It was a lot of dye, the most dye I've ever seen leak out of something before. I'm not sure if it's lighter now, like if it really wasn't set well or if it really was just excess dye. There's still teal in there, so I'm okay with it. But again, I really kind of try to rinse it a lot until the teal stop bleeding. And honestly, I don't even think it worked. So, and because this isn't superwash, I think I manhandled it a little bit too much with getting the teal out, and it actually, I think the fuzziness, I don't know, it didn't felt, but it's just extra fuzzy now. Extra love with the fuzz. So again, this is that spinning project, and then I'm gonna probably cast on for it this weekend and just start to see how it's knitting up, see if I like it. Otherwise, I am more than happy to have this sitting around to look at and be proud of and all of that. I am gonna show you what's next because I do intend to start a new project this weekend. So if you watched one of my early videos from this channel, I did a video on how I got started into spinning and I showed off my fiber stash. I have another braid from Created by Elsie B that I will be knitting probably after this one. But my next project is a bullseye bat from Loop. So I bought this back at Rhinebeck last year. It has colors that I love in the pinks and the grays, and I just think it'll be different than doing a comb top. So the braid that I have from Created by Elsie B, there's no C-cell in it, but I think it's all BFL, and again, it's a comb top. So I figured this would be a different experience and try something new, especially because it's not comb top. It's a bat. And so how this works is you just pull from the center and spin from there. So that's my plan. I'm not doing anything else other than spinning from the center like that. So it will be self-striping. I will probably 3-ply, chain ply this as a 3-ply. It's a merino, angelina, and nylon blend, and it's the Impatience colorway. I think all of hers are one of a kind though. So because it has the merino and the nylon, I'm going to try to do this as a self-striping and then knit it up as socks when it's done. So a 3-ply will be good for that. And yeah, so again, I did BFL, which I think is a good beginner one. It was, even though the C-cell was a little slippery, I had no problems with it because the BFL is so woolly. I know merino is known to be sleeker, and so I'm excited to see how that spins up, but then also see if it still also is as fuzzy. It probably will be, since it's also like a bat, so it's a more woolen prep and not the comb top, right? I'm a newbie to all this. So anyway, that's the next project. I'm gonna give my wheel a nice deep clean and oiling this weekend after all the plying that I did, and then get this going on the wheel. So stay tuned to hear more about that as I do it. So that is it for today's spinning vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't do that much spinning, so it doesn't pop up on here too much, but I'm always excited to talk about when it does. It's been really great to kind of get spinning back into the routine of things and do it for a little bit after work every day. So that's what I've been doing, and that's what I'm gonna hope to continue doing. And instead of having browns and blues, I'm gonna have some pinks and grays to look at. I think the self-striping piece will be pretty cool. I'm not sure how quickly I'll get through each color, like if it's a lot or if it's one of those things where it's like, let me just finish the pink, let me just finish the gray. So we'll see. Anyway, that is it for today. Thank you for watching. If you are watching this Friday night, just remember tomorrow I have a live Dye With Me session. Tomorrow, September 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. If you are watching this late and you missed it, no worries. It will be up on my channel so you can watch it anytime. And if you don't already know what the pigskin party is, go check out downzellerstudio.com or BostonJen1 on Instagram to find out more details and come join us. So that is it, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.